Call this meeting of the Hendry County School Board February 6th to order. If you would please rise as we do the invocation and the pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thy kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is presentations. Mr. Superintendent, do we have any presentations this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have a presentation. Mr. Sanchez is going to be making his way forward, and Mr. Sanchez this evening is going to be unpacking the data regarding our Hendry County Schools graduation rates. This data has been released since our last meeting, and we've been working through it and making sense of it and going back and looking at the inputs that we've had over our schools over the last couple of years and how that impacts our graduation rate. We readily admit that, out of all the data that we look at, our graduation rate is really one of the most important metrics that we look at. That is a huge piece of information that we use, a huge piece of information that kind of marks where we are. We do also want to make sure that you understand all of the data. It's not easy to understand. There's a lot that goes into it. The graduation rate is a very algorithmic formula with a lot of math, and it's very mind-boggling to understand. One of the things you need to know is that it's a 4-year cohort, so it's the students that start with us in 9th grade and go all the way through. A lot of people think it's just how many graduates started the 12th grade year at the end of the 12th grade year, and that's not true either. And so Mr. Sanchez is going to go through and help you understand this. I readily admit, that when you first look at our graduation rate, it is not good. We're in the bottom 3 or 4 or so in the state when you first just glance at the data and look at that number percentage-wise. And I'll begin with the end in mind, and that is, really what I would ask you to do is to really understand where we are with the brick and mortar schools and the schools that we have control of the variables over. And I think that you will see at the end that when you look at that and focus on that, we do pretty doggone good. And so Mr. Sanchez will explain the differences, where the data lies, and obviously, unless it's 100%, we're not satisfied. And we're going to continue plowing forward and making improvements and doing things that we can do to get better. And it's not 100%. And so we will continue to improve and continue to look for efficiency factors and management practices that makes us better at getting our children across that graduation stage and onto a more productive life. So I'll let Mr. Sanchez go, and then I'll wrap it up at the end.
All right, well, thank you, Superintendent Swindle, and thank you, School Board, for the opportunity to share with you some of the areas that we're proud of when it comes to our collective work, because this is really a product of the collective work of not only the teachers at the high school level, but also the teachers at the elementary level, the teachers at the middle school level, right? It is the culmination of all the work that we do to get these students of ours across the finish line and a diploma in their hands at graduation. So we're proud to share the work and the progress, and also share with you some of the areas that continue to be opportunities where we can enhance the way that we serve students moving forward, right? I want to begin by talking about how the changing targets come about. So if you look at the chart up here, prior to 2022, there were different graduation requirements in terms of the ELA competency score. All right, so you have to pass the 10th grade reading exam, but if you don't pass that, prior to 2022, you could get a concordance score of 430 on the SAT. The DOE decided that those concordance scores were not high enough, so beginning with 2022, the intent was to raise it up to a 480, which when you dramatically increase the graduation ELA requirement by 50 points on the SAT, obviously that's going to present a challenge. for a lot of our students, right, with that score. So because of the ongoing ramifications of COVID, in 2022, the DOE decided to continue the requirements that were right here at the bottom. They did not, they put a pause, a 1-year pause on it, right? In 2023, the DOE told us that they were going to, in fact, go to the higher, more stringent requirements for testing. But at the 11th hour, on May 9th, 2023, the DOE halfway caved in, where they basically said, we will allow students with a 430 on the ELA literacy score, but we will accept a higher per math score of 114 versus 97. All right? And so that obviously has some effects, because students that would have, in let's say 2021, qualified to graduate with a PERT score of 98, that score wasn't good enough in 2023. All right? So I think context is important to understand that the increasing demands upon students in terms of what they have to satisfy in order to get across the finish line. I think that's helpful in understanding the data. All right? So when we looked at our graduation data, and this is the 4 schools, 3 of which we have direct influence on. The 4th one, we have a contractual partnership with one in DAOF. Like, we don't necessarily go out and hire the principals for DAOF like we would for LaBelle High School. We don't go out and hire the teachers ourselves directly for the teachers at DAOF, right? So you can see there that there's an opportunity for growth there at CHS. 82.1 is still pretty respectable in comparison to 2019, which was the year right before COVID. Okay? Keep in mind that these students that graduated last year were freshmen when all the pandemic came. So a lot of them got their freshman year upended when COVID began. And a lot of them continued on virtual learning the following year, the first semester. We had a significant number of students in the fall of 21, in the fall of 2020, that still continued on. So they would have been sophomores right here. So this cohort suffered significant interruption because of the pandemic. All right, so even with all that, just to be comparable to graduation rates before the pandemic, I think is pretty remarkable. And understanding too that the class of 2023 not only had to endure all that ordeal of COVID, but also now with higher graduation testing requirements. All right.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yeah.
on the OLA, are those numbers transposed?
Transposed. So on the graduation rate, yes. So it's actually inverse there. That was my mistake. 67 is actually the previous year in 24.1. Yes, ma'am. All right. So when we looked at the graduation rates, one of the things that we always like to do is compare ourselves to our regional colleagues, right? Because in the Heartland Consortium, in the rural, Heartland of Florida, we have similar challenges, similar opportunities, similar financial constraints, similar difficulties sometimes in recruiting teachers and hiring teachers, right? So when we looked at how do we stack up against our regional colleagues, very proud to see that LaBelle High School was #1. The highest graduation rate in the Heartland Consortium went to LaBelle High School at 86.9%. Clewiston High School ended up at 82.1, which is still in the top 5. So both our high schools that we manage are in the top half of the graduation rates in the consortium. All right.
Mr. Sanchez, what's the state average for the grad rate?
In 2023, it was 88%.
Okay, so nobody, and I'm going to throw shade at the Heartland Education Consortium, nobody within that consortium met the average, the state average.
Okay. So we, when we saw this data point, we had an opportunity to go to LaBelle High School during the half-day professional learning, because we've done a lot of work in terms of moving instructional quality forward as a district, right? And one of those things has been our half-day professional learning days, right? There is a greater emphasis in terms of instruction in this district, and I've been here 15, 16 years and ever before, in terms of how much we focus our instruction. I mean, it's unheard of. The things that we do nowadays, where district leaders from all different departments take 3 days throughout the year and at each quarter go and observe classrooms, go and engage with school leaders about instruction, about, you know, things that could be done to tweak things, to improve things in the classroom. I think it's remarkable, and I think it's all a testament to the work that these folks at LaBelle High School have done. And I think it was very fitting that we presented the banner to the entire school, because each one of those folks that you see up there had a part of the puzzle and contributed to the overall high graduation rate that they had at LaBelle High School last school year.
Can I jump in just for a second, Mr. Sanchez and board? I want to make sure that he doesn't underscore that, and he did a good job, but on top of everything we don't have, one of the things that we do have is some wonderful teachers and people that work for us, and that really is what makes the difference. And yes, it is teaching in classrooms, and it is, you know, making sure the pedagogy that we expect of them is being carried out, but the other big thing is building relationships with students. Teachers, guidance counselors, all the way to the custodian. You know, that's the culture that we have created and instilled, that we want everyone to own that. We want everyone to have a piece of that. And not only the principal, but everyone in that picture, and some that didn't quite make it there in time. You know, the relationships they build, the after school things they do with these students and for them, that's what makes the difference. And the fact that the folks at LaBelle High School had the highest in the Heartland, that says a lot for what they poured into it. And I couldn't be prouder of that team in the picture.
Absolutely, right? So then the other piece that we did was we looked at our graduation data by different cohorts, right? So how well are we doing in terms of getting ESC students to the finish line? How well are we doing in terms of getting our migrant students to the finish line? And when we looked at it from a subgroup lens, Clewiston High School came out as the #1 school in terms of ESC graduation rate at 92.3, and #1 in terms of the migrant rate, which is at 85.7. So kudos to the team at Clewiston High School. We also had the opportunity to present them a banner. And I think this speaks to the tremendous collaboration that exists within our district departments and the schools, right? Because this is truly a wraparound result of the EC department and the support and the training and the guidance, you know, the professional learning that they help facilitate during those half-day PDs for our collaborative teachers, right? For our inclusion teachers. And the work that our federal programs department's doing with our migrant students, right? Getting out there to the homes, making those connections, going back to what Mr. Swindle's talking about, the relationships that they foster between, you know, the students, the parents, and the school. So I think it's just a tremendous result that we were #1.
Okay. And I need to point something out that's very specific about this picture here. If you'll notice, I actually took a shower that day. Rosa Perez did not sit close to me because we left the space on purpose, and that's where Miss Beth Lukenhouse would be sitting had she not retired. And that specific data point is really dependent upon the work that she did with those ESC students, those teachers, staying with them, breaking her back to make sure that they were successful, they had the support they needed, and guide them. And that's the power of what an individual can do. But also, again, it speaks to the power of that group at CHS and the love they care and have for our students. And it was a great team effort, and we're extremely proud of that group as well.
I think you just see the sense of pride and happiness in the faces of those folks there on the picture.
Mr. Sanchez, how heavily do we rely on ESC waivers?
There was 26 students at LaBelle High School last year that got a waiver, okay, and 21 students then at CHS that got a waiver. Okay. And the waiver process is a process where a student who has an IEP, a disability, right, can show mastery of ELA and mastery of the math standards in lieu of getting the passing score on the actual 10th grade ELA exam or the Algebra 1 EOC. They still have to have the 24 credits, they still have to have the 2.0 GPA for other 4 classes, right? But it does allow them that opportunity for equity, you know, based on their disability. All right, then when we broke down the data, and I put this slide up here to really point out the bottom here, is that when you look at just LHS and CHS, which are the 2 high schools that we invest heavily in, our graduation rate is close to 85%. When you include OLA in there, because we had a lower percentage of students graduating from there, it does bring it down to 81.8. And then when you include DAOF, it brings it down to 71.7. Our district graduation rate is 71.2, which includes a few students from like ESE, hospital, homebound, et cetera, right? So the 71.2 is actually, in like Mr. Swindle said, in the bottom 3 of the state. But when you look at 84.8, it's actually number 40 out of 75 school districts. Okay, it's actually number
Mr.
40.
Sanchez, my math and your math are not agreeing.
Okay.
When you add 82.1 for Clewiston High School, 86.9 for LaBelle High School, and then you add 24.1 for Ola, you're coming out to 64.4. You average those 3.
Yeah, it's just that you can't quite average them because Ola has like 24 kids. It's like a very small number, so you have to go by numerically. So you can't just do a 3 straight average among the 3 because LaBelle High School has a far greater amount of students. So you have to go by this right here, which is
Well, I thought that if you had
488 students
10,
graduating and 596, and that gives you the grade. Because the graduation rate is based on the total number of students that are in the cohort divided by the total number of graduates. All right. So it's not just based on the average of 3, because if it was the average of 3, then I would assume that OLA, LHS, and CHS have equal amounts of students, and they do not. LHS has far greater,
but it's
volume of students.
averages and not hard numbers.
No, the graduation rate is based on hard numbers. It's based on numerically how many kids out of your cohort, out of your total cohort in the district graduated. Okay, that's why when you include DAOF, you see how this number, the Hendry, the number goes up above 1,000 students in the cohort, but only 774 graduated out of that cohort, because the difference between 596 and 1,078 is the number of students that were seniors in DAOF, right? And they have a significant number. DAOF has a significant number of seniors. So the 81.8 is the graduation rate just among the 3 schools that we control, because OLA only has 29 students. You see, you got to look at the 29, you got to look at the 240, and you have to look at the 327. So 240 plus 327 plus 29 equals your 596. Then you got to add in the number of graduates, 7 from OLA. You got to add in your 187 from Clewiston High School, and you got to add in the 284 at LHS, and that gives you this number right here. So the 81.8 is so when you look at 81.8, still that's about 54 out of 75. So far better than the bottom third, than the bottom 3. All right, so 81.8 ranks 54 out of 75. 84.8, which is just the 2 high schools, ranks 40 out of 75, so right in the middle when you look at that, okay? So, when we also compared our overall district graduation rates, now keep in mind that these are rates here that I put a little asterisk mark, these are district managed high schools, right? But even if you were to include OLA in there, which is the rate that we just talked about before, which is 81.8. 81.8 is still, right? Even when you include OLA, 81.8 is still number 2 in the Heartland Consortium in terms of our graduation rate, when you include OLA, okay? And you can see that the difference in drop, most of the school districts in the Heartland Consortium saw a significant drop in their graduation rates from year to year, from 2022 to 2023. We actually saw the smallest drop between those graduation rates. Okay. All right, and that's all I have for you today. I don't know if there was any more further questions or comments that you'd like to make.
A question on the OLA students. In your first thing, it was 67.9%.
Yeah, first year.
So that's our graduation rate. So a third of our students didn't graduate, if I look at from OLA. Is there something else we need to be doing to serve those students to to increase that graduation rate? I mean, I understand it's not a large group, but we're responsible, and what are we doing to follow up with those students? Because they're online. I know some of them are easily distracted, to say the least. They're probably not doing their work. How are we following up with those students to make sure we can make them a little more successful?
Well, I think we've done two major changes from the previous year. This year, number one, we're a lot more adamant and stringent with our attendance in terms of the kids on OLA. This year, we implemented a new approach where the students have to log in by 8 o'clock on their computers. They have to turn their video cameras on, and through our Go Guardian program, which is a program where the teacher can, from their classroom, see and look at what the students are doing on their computer screens, right? We're taking attendance that way, okay? And we're seeing a much better outcome in terms of students engaged with the OLA.
And this is the first year of that.
Yeah, this is the first year of that, right? We didn't implement that approach last year, all right? So that is far better, all right? The second thing.
Office hours as well?
And we have office hours as well for our students, so that if they have a question or they have a problem with something in the Apex curriculum, the Apex curriculum that we use in the OLA program also has built-in tutorials. So if they get confused with something or need help, it has built-in tutorials. But the second big thing we did, because we realized that was an issue, right? And last year, the policy was if you got offered a stipulated agreement in lieu of a recommendation of expulsion, you were out the remainder of that semester plus one full additional semester, right? That was across the board, middle school and high school.
Right.
So this year, we're still maintaining a standard of zero tolerance in the school, but we did shorten the length of stay out. So now middle school students, after being gone from OLA for 45 days, we automatically review their progress. And if they've done the things that we've asked them to do in the stipulated agreement, we accept them to come back after 45 school days, right? So it shortens the length that they're away from school. At the high school level, we would do the review process at 90 days. All right, so again, it shortens the length that they're out on OLA in an effort to get them back to school so we can provide them a far better education.
And we're seeing a good rate of the students that are coming back that are really appreciative of that. And so very few of them are repeat, or come back recidivism and having to have issues with them. So most of them are being very receptive and trying very hard. So we are proud of that.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you. I appreciate that information.
Mr. Sanchez, when we look at, and this can also be directed to Mr. Swindle as well, when you're looking at the purpose of OLA, you want to, one of the things that we were told as a board is the purpose of this is to remove, there's going to be kids, and when you remove these, people who are having these behavioral issues, it creates an atmosphere where your students, the students who are left behind have a better learning environment. And so, when you look at the outcomes of OLA, the 24.1% graduation rate, but then you look at our graduation rates, even though they're down slightly, they're still down. And so wouldn't the purpose of that and the promise of that be what drives, it would drive higher outcomes, better outcomes? Like, I'm hung up on that issue.
You mean, so if you left them in school, you would think it would be lower? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that by removing them from school, you would think that it would increase the student outcomes. It would improve student outcomes, but we're
For
not.
those that got removed.
Well, no, for the ones who are still in school. Like if you're removing the kids who are committing these infractions, then it would create a better learning environment, and then the learning environment would, you would have, as a natural consequence of that, you would have a, higher outcomes and achievement.
And there's no crystal ball to know truly if you are or not, but the other way to look at that is it could also, if we didn't remove them, it could also drive it down further. So that could be, there's no doubt the learning environment, as we do our focus studies with teachers, as we do it with students, there is no doubt that they complement, the zero tolerance piece of it, and they thank us for it because they see the better learning environments with regard to the reasons that students are being removed. And ultimately what happens is we're not trying to wash our hands of students, but what we do is if you commit any of the majors, right? If you major unforgivables as we look at them, whether if you start a major fight or in a major fight, if you have a weapon or drugs, you cannot choose your learning modality from that point forward. You have the option to come and be at our school, but then that gets removed. And so DAOF actually is a very good online alternative school for a lot of them, and we have north of 30 students in there now that are doing very well. And then and the other thing that Mr. Sanchez probably needs to mention too is that they have stepped up the HOLA monitoring to where we have people that watch that closer, follow them closer, check in with them more than what we were able to do in the past. So we think that, you know, those outcomes will be better for those students going forward as well.
Because just when you're looking at those numbers on a piece of paper, that 24.1 is a very stark number. And are these kids who are being able to come back later and complete or outside of the 4 years? Or are these kids that at the 4 years, it's the end of the road and take your certificate of completion or whatever you assign them?
Take their certificate of completion. You do have the option to come back if they so choose to be a fifth-year senior. But I think it's important to know when you talk about the HOLA graduation rate that it is our version of alternative education programs, right? And so I was sharing with Mr. Swindle the other day that I ran a list of a lot of the alternative education high schools in the state of Florida. So these are schools where students go that have disciplinary issues, right, or other issues that for whatever reason it just doesn't work out for them. And we looked at the list of over 200 of those programs. You know how many of them had a graduation rate of 0%?
Oh, it was appalling.
It's over 40 of them. And that list had a graduation rate of 0. Right? So when you look at the HOLA graduation, we rank right in the middle of that group of 200 plus schools that are alternative ed programs. So I think you have to put it into perspective that you are dealing with a student population that is challenging, right, in terms of discipline. And they were also challenging before they got into a disciplinary situation, right? They were struggling academically at school, right?
So I have a few more questions. I appreciate the breakdown about the graduation rates by special category. So I pulled our graduation rates for all categories. I just didn't want to cherry pick the ones that we were doing well in. And what are we doing for the ELL?
Yeah, so
Because there's a big disparity between the federal rate and the ELL rate.
correct. The ELL rate is absolutely an area that is an opportunity for us to serve our students better. When it comes to ELs, one of the things that we did this school year is we added more personnel to support our ESC. We added paraprofessionals at the high school level. We added ELL teachers at the high school level this past year. And so one of the ways that we're working to improve that is by providing the human resource, the human capital that is necessary to move these kids in the right direction.
And I might add too that last year I tasked Dr. Mundy and Ms. Rosa Perez with creating an ELL task force because we watched that number starting to suffer and we could tell that it was coming and we were getting inundated with the number of ELL students that we have. And so all of that sort of added up. And so they've done a really good job of taking school by school, looking at the students they had, looking at the needs where they were, finding out where the needs specifically needed to be propped up, shored up, either with an additional ELL teacher or an ELL parent, or where their students could get additional services, or someone could go to the math class or English class with them. And so they have done just a remarkable job at that. And we hope this year to see the fruits of their labor show up all across the board. It's not just graduation rate, Mr. Sanchez alluded to. They did it in all 10 schools. And so we know that that is a challenge for us because out of the growth that we've been getting, an alarming percentage of them are in the ELL category. That doesn't make them dumb. That's not the issue or bad necessarily, but they have another added educational barrier that has to be overcome before they can start learning on a regular modality system. And so we're doing our best to try to shore that up and shorten the length of that curve that they have to overcome.
Is that inundation with ELL, is it a statewide thing or?
It is.
That is something
It
we're
is.
seeing?
It absolutely is.
And are these students that are maybe like coming up for, like in Hendry County, like coming up from Miami-Dade, which is a Spanish-speaking, like heavy Spanish-speaking community?
That's
Are they
part.
out of the country?
That's a part of it. A lot of Cuba, a lot of Miami, and a lot of them are coming all the way from. We're getting that come across, the border in Texas, and say they show up here with a toddler on their hands, a baby on their hip, and they're here to register. The other piece of that is, and I don't want to leave Miss White. I know she's feeling like she's not loved. A lot of them also has learning disabilities, an alarming percentage higher than we've ever seen in the history of our schools. So we're getting a lot of new students, but a lot of them come with a lot of needs. And it's very high needs. And then I don't want to leave Ms. Cox out of the picture, because those needs come with a very high price tag on what it costs to be able to meet those needs. And that it is something that we all sit around on a common basis and scratch our heads about how do we meet the needs of these babies, and it's nothing short of it takes more money to hire more professionals to meet more needs, and it's not easy or cheap.
Yeah, just in our brick and mortar schools, right, our 10 schools, 17.2% of our student population is ELL, right? And I think another point to realize when we talk about ELL students is that not only are they coming to this country without understanding the English language, but a lot of them are coming to this country without having gone to school in the last 4 years since before COVID. So we're seeing kids at the high school level that are coming here that have not been to school since 2019, and we're enrolling them as, you know, 9th graders and 10th graders, and they missed their entire middle school years in their home country. So that adds to the challenges that we have.
So when you look at that, you know, and just to wrap up my piece of this, when you look at all those things on top of what we went through COVID, on top of what we've gone through with the struggle to get teachers, with the struggles that we have for us to have the graduation rates and the variables that we can control, I'm extremely proud of our schools and the work that they have done, and I hope that y'all all are as well. This is cause for celebration. It is not cause for contempt. We do need to continue to work harder and get better. We do need to work with our partners at DAOF to help them shore up their graduation rate, and we are doing those activities as well, and they have a solid plan going forward so that theirs should dramatically increase this year as well. But I just want to make sure that our schools know the truth, that, you know, the 72 or 1%, whatever it is, that we are looked at as a district from the state is not indicative of our district or what we truly do in our brick and mortar schools. And I'm proud of them, and I want to celebrate that, and I hope that you all agree. And when you see them, you know, thank them for the work they do, because it takes a lot to make it happen. They're working tirelessly now, you know, with groups of students that are struggling to get the test taken. Reverend Brown, you know, worked with a cohort of young men, him and a bunch of his colleagues, and so y'all know firsthand what it takes to help get some of the struggle is real, and they do it every day. So just want to make sure I mention that and make sure y'all know how much I appreciate the work our schools, teachers, and staffs are doing.
Yeah, Mr. Swindle spearheaded that mentoring program at CHS with Ms. Allen the last 2 years, and it included community members like Reverend Brown. And so, you know, that all is part of the puzzle. That all is the contributing factors to the graduation rates that we see in front of us. And I think when we look at the DOF graduation rate, I think there's two ways to look at it. I think you can look at that graduation rate at 59%, right, and compare it to brick and mortar, right, and be very disappointed in the graduation rate. You can also look at it and compare it to alternative education programs, because DAOF serves a student population that for whatever reason, the traditional brick and mortar in-classroom experience did not work for them, okay? These are kids that probably, had it not been for DAOF, would not have an opportunity to get a high school diploma. And the fact that 59% of them were able to earn a high school diploma, you know, it is a different way to look at it than just to look at it from a lens of disappointment that, hey, that graduation rate's too low. You know, we definitely will continue to work with our DOF partners to increase that, but I think that's something to look at the context of what we're talking about with our DOF.
One thing I would like to mention in the champion program, one of the joy I received was seeing a kid apply himself. That normally he would just walk away and stop, and to see him once he's cornered and show him, I want you to learn, they will. They'll try, all will be successful, but most of them will try hard. You see the achievement in them.
Relationships make a huge
Yes, it
difference,
does.
because it's that relationship with that caring adult, that authentic relationship with that adult that will push that kid to work a little harder, you know, to do his assignments, to log in back into that Apex and finish. And so
How do you teach a kid who hadn't been in middle school at all? That's the 9th grade.
it is a tremendous challenge. It is a tremendous challenge, because it requires a lot of support. And like our federal programs this year with Ms. Perez and Dr. Mundy have done a lot of training in terms of getting ELL strategies in front of our teachers, right? But even at that, when you're dealing with a 9th grader that hasn't been in school since they were in 4th grade, in Nicaragua or Venezuela. That's what we're up with. That's the reality of the challenges that our folks face in the classroom.
Those up above don't take that into account at all.
No.
Mr.
Sanchez, we
Sanchez,
appreciate your presentation there.
Mr. Sanchez,
If any other board member has any other questions, Ms. Buston, we've given you about 15, 17 minutes now. We've actually went over the 10 minutes that typically is allowed per person according to the Roberts rules here, so we kind of need to keep this meeting moving forward. If any other member would have any other questions, if not, we appreciate your presentation. We'd ask that you contact him and get any other questions answered after the meeting. Thank you.
No problem. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Superintendent, next item is citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comment at this time?
We usually do not, but we're honored tonight to have the presence of royalty, somebody well-known, somebody respected, somebody from this community that I think she and God planted these trees around here together, and that's how long she's been around. So we want to welcome Ms. Janet Taylor to come forward.
You all haven't seen me for some time, so you know you must have been doing something good. You know I'll show up. But
Ms. Taylor, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but 3 minutes. I do apologize for
Oh
each
my
speaker.
God.
Yes, ma'am.
She knew.
let me talk fast.
I know you know that. I gotta say it though.
Okay, that's fine. The superintendent, to the chair of the board, to the board members, I just come to update you on, I came to you, I think, when in LaBelle and told you about our organization, Blaze Life Matter, and I hadn't heard anything from you all, but I do want to report to you. I'm on my way now from Palm Beach County School, so tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, we will be leaving, taking students from Moorhaven High School, Clewiston High School, Lake Central High School, Pahokee High Schools, and Crossroads Academy. We take 3 students, their parents, the guidance counselor, and we take elected officials from each one of those things. So I just want to update you and let you know that tomorrow morning we have 2 teachers from Clewiston High that will be going with the 3 students and their parents from here to the legislative session. We try to take our children and expose them to what you all are doing, but especially what they're doing up in Tallahassee that make decisions that affect what you do here locally. So we want them to know what the legislative process is. So that's why we did. This year we have an ambassadorship program, and our ambassadorship program is to teach the children about the area that we live in, which is agricultural. And everybody have all the rules and woes about us. So we teach the children, they're all seniors this year, so that they could go back into the communities and educate their parents and the other students and other organizations in there about how important agriculture is for our area, because that's how we live. So I just want to update you and let you know that we're still functioning, we're still caring for our children, we're still being the voice of the Glaze around the lake. They're going to Tallahassee this week, I'm going to Washington next week, so we still want to be a voice, and we just want you to know that we are alive and present.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Would you mind answering a question for us? Or would you take 30 seconds maybe and explain what we did at the Harlem Civic Center with the group from Tuskegee?
Oh,
Please.
Blaze Life Matter, which is our same organization. You all know of all the environmental issues that we have and how they blame us for everything. And regardless of what we say about our air quality, our water quality, or anything, nobody believes us because we are really praising our own self, so they don't believe it. U.S. Sugar, in their wisdom and in a lot of coaching, agreed to bring in a research university, which is Tuskegee Institute, to come meet personally. We met with Pierre and the people in the Glaze to let them come in as a third party, do the research themselves, don't take our word for it. They're going to come back and going to have town hall meetings to get information from those people and stuff like that. They're going to do their own research. They brought in 5 doctors with them that came with them this time. And they are going to be doing community, they're gonna do this, they'll be talking to some of you all about education. The superintendent did come out and talk to us that day. But we're gonna do education, we're gonna do healthcare, we're gonna do agriculture, we're gonna do all facets of what life is like here in our agriculture area. They are gonna come back and do the report. They don't have any reason to lie to us or to the community. They're going to be factual, and that's what we like about the relationship. And I have to just say kudos to you as Sugar for agreeing to allow that to happen for us.
And so they're going to be fair and impartial with what
They're going to
whatever
be
they
fair.
say.
Well, they don't have any dog in the fight.
Right.
So they don't have any reason to take up for us
And-
or the environmental. In fact, Dr. Ogle, I don't know if y'all, Dr. Ogle says she's going to tell it like it is. Well, it's good, bad, and different. They are there to give the facts. They are a research institution, and they are also going to be partnering with A&M.
Awesome.
And we are also hoping to bring in Bethune-Cookman, but you know you can't beg but for so much.
So, one more.
And what happened?
One final question. So on their exiting interview, when they were with you and the lovely Miss Holmes, they made a comment about the school system. Could you share with us what that was?
Now, you know I am 77 years old.
Oh, you are not lying. Stop lying. You ain't
Now,
lying.
just right now, if you jog my
I think
memory.
it was the champion program or something that they,
Huh?
they said the champion program was good.
Oh, you mean what about education, what they plan to do?
No, they made a comment about our school system in the Harlem community. And Ms. Holmes made it a point to call me and share me right after I spoke to you that day.
Now, share with me because she is my brain now.
Oh, got it. So
That's my daughter.
Dr. Holmes said,
You know what, let me tell you all something. In life, if you don't share what you have with some younger person, you're gonna take it to the grave with you. So I decided to start sharing with her. So a lot of stuff that she picks up, I don't really pick up. So if she was here, she could really tell you what they said.
maybe she didn't tell you, but she told me, I'll tell you that.
No, tell me, if you tell me.
So she made it a point to call me the day after we were there, and she said on the exit interview, when they were sitting around and just kind of debriefing over everything that they had been through, everyone that they had talked to, they said they looked at her and said, right now, it looks like the best thing the Harlem community has going for them is the Henry County school system. They have had the most injection, the most help, and are going above and beyond to help, you know, with the intrinsic problems that Harlem is seeing. And so I was very proud of that. And I made it a point to call Mr. Brown because I wanted him to know, you know, that his community had been a focal point, you know, for us.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of stuff they shared with her, they didn't share with me because I was too busy doing other stuff.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, now you know that.
I know that, and I hope that that is exactly what we're going to continue to do.
Good.
Because
Yeah.
we've got to work on.
But you're cool 77 though.
Oh, praise the Lord.
Thank you.
And thank you all so much. I don't want to run, but it's my son-in-law's birthday. Thank you. Bye-bye.
On to our consent agenda. So does any board member have anything that they would like to pull from the consent agenda and make it an action item?
I'd like just a clarification on one item. I don't need be a single. The Beyond Barriers, which was item F, I looked at it and it was for mental health, but it was the amount was only $10,000. What service are we going to get and who's going to be served for that?
It's to add to our mental health providers team that we already have. They pick up some of the wraparound kind of cases that we need. It's not a high number.
Yeah.
And it's when we have expended all our caseload with those particular providers, they will utilize them as kind of a backup. So it's taken care of under the mental health grant, and they're written into them, contract services written through the mental health grant. We just had to change their liability and all their insurance stuff. They just had to update their contract. It's the same company we used last year as well.
Which is a small amount, so I was kind of surprised.
Yeah,
I know it was one special person that we did to sort of.
Yes, and it's the same one.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
All right, well, we have nobody else who wants to pull anything. Mr. Superintendent, do we have a recommendation for the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Sammerdine. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, next are the action items. Mr. Superintendent, we have a recommendation on action item A, new personnel allocation request.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I recommend your approval of action item 5A, new personnel allocation request as presented.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Reverend Brown, seconded by Ms. Nelson. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, go ahead, maybe.
Yes, ma'am.
On the allocation request for the Early Learning Center principal, do we know, so I go back to making decisions with the end in mind and what we're hoping to achieve. Through this allocation and the setup of this center, do we know what our kindergarten readiness rate is for Hendry County right now? And do we know what the goal is going forward?
I'm failing to understand you. How does that?
So my question is that I want to know, like in my decision-making process as it applies to the personnel allocation request for a principal for that early learning center, do we know what our kindergarten readiness rate is currently? And what is our goal? Like, how do we measure if this is an effective investment of money?
Okay, I don't know that that would be the matrix necessarily. That would be the proper matrix to measure that would be an effective use of the money based on a percentage alone.
I mean, because you would hope the purpose of it is to increase kindergarten readiness. You've got everything consolidated on a campus, correct?
Well, that's
And
the
purpose is
overall goal of
for-
the pre-K
for
piece.
Improvement of the outcomes. I mean, that should be driving like all of our decisions.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's way more than that though. Having all those pre-K students in one place where they can get that focused attention, where they can get the services they need from behavior, text, to get them ready for, kindergarten. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just a pre-K readiness rate.
I mean, I feel like that is, like the end game on our decisions is to increase student achievement, and that's
Sure.
the measurement of it.
Sure,
for
yeah,
that.
that's always the goal, no matter if they're there or in this current sites they're in now. It's always the goal.
So do we know the current readiness rates, and was it just the typical 3%?
I'm sorry?
Is it like what I've seen in the other goals would it be a 3% increase over this year?
Typically on a goal, when you're trying to increase achievement, is to 3 to 7% is a sustainable type of an achievement rate goal, no matter if it's graduation, no matter if it's ELA attainment, or no matter what it is. And obviously we want more, that's the whole goal, it's the whole purpose of doing that, so that we can get focused attention from leaders, teachers, principals, those support services. And so obviously we want that to be way better. We know that it's low, historically low.
Dr. Mundy probably knows the kindergarten readiness rate, she could snap it out of her head. It's 80-something% for us, but I don't.
Is that including DAOF?
DAO doesn't
Yes.
have. It is. Our state data, it's the kindergarten data.
I've already asked this question before, when we had a presentation, and I could never get an answer. I was wondering if we have figured out what our Hendry brick and mortar graduate,
Kindergarten readiness is based on the first progress monitoring and FAST map. That data overall, yes, would be indicative of including DAOF. We can disaggregate that data as well, but I do believe when we do have a high kindergarten readiness rate, EPK has been a huge participation of leading the way for that, and the more students that we can get enrolled in VPK, the better our outcomes will continue to be. That's an ongoing process to add classrooms and so forth as we get students.
And currently, Dr. Mundy is in Tallahassee, advocating for
Okay.
VPK.
But I can tell you that VPK has already taken the first star early literacy at the beginning of the year, and they have been taking the second star. So it's just a matter of getting that data to see growth so far, you know, in our classrooms at our schools. I do the Montura, so I have one teacher that has 93% of her students have already shown growth. The majority of them are ready at this point of the year. And then I have another one that had 87, but part of that was 2 kids haven't tested yet. So that's just in Montura, and that's 2 classrooms. So, you know, our VPKs are doing a good job. I mean, I would think that Richard could get that data. You know, at least let you know this is where they started, right? With the Star Literacy 1 at the beginning of the year. This is where they're at, and then they will have another one at the end of the year. There is data. That's what I'm trying to say.
Do you have any further discussion? No further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, action item 5B, sir. We have a recommendation, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir. I recommend your favorable approval and consideration of action item 5B, personal recommendation concerning Robin Basquin.
So moved.
The vice chairman is part of?
No, just abstain.
No, you just need to
I
abstain.
need to abstain from this vote, so do we have any, so who was the motion and second?
First, I made the motion.
Sam Dyke was the motion, and Mr. Reverend Brown was the second. All right, do we have any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Superintendent, is action item 5B, or C, excuse me.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I recommend your approval of action item 5C, personal recommendations concerning Ms. Chelsea Brown.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Busen, second by Mr. Sammerdyke.
Want to abstain from voting on this particular?
Mr. Brown abstains from the vote. Okay. Do we have any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next, action item 5D.
Yes, sir. 5D is the hearing for the notice of proposed rural development special update from back in September of 2023, and we recommend your approval of the proposed rural development as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sammerdyke, second by Ms. Nelson. Do we have any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Superintendent, I do not see anything else, so we can move on to board member business. Madam Attorney, do you have anything for the board tonight?
Not at this time, thank you.
Mr. Superintendent?
A couple just quick things. The Special Olympics this year will be held this Thursday and Friday at 9 a.m. at LaBelle High School. I think the elementaries are Thursday, and then the secondary schools are on Friday. It's always a great event, lots of fun, lots of smiles, and a great time. So if any of you are able to make it over there, if you'll go up to LaBelle High School, they'll have entry procedures and things that you'll need to go through there. And then we would encourage you to please come take part of that if you have the availability to do so.
I'm sorry, what dates and times?
Thursday at 9, Friday at 9. Thursday is elementary, Friday is secondary. At LHS.
And Mr. Superintendent,
Yes,
does that
ma'am.
include all schools within the district?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. We go back and forth. Next year they'll be at the high school football field here in Portsmouth, so they'll go back and forth. Really neat if you get a chance to go. The other was per request of Board Member Sammerdyke, we did get a good wad of clubs, organizations in LaBelle that are doing floats and presentations in the parade. Obviously, they're working on it, so the true number will come out at the end, but we definitely have more than what we had in the past.
I'm very excited to see
Yep.
that.
And, we're gonna be grouped together, in the parade, right behind a swamp buggy full of board members. So that is taken care of. We have we have the buggy arranged again, so bring your big bags of candy and we'll have a good time. So looking forward to it. When we get closer to that time, I will give more instructions about the exact time, location we're gonna meet and stuff like
I
that.
think we have one more meeting before.
I think we have another one, yeah, so we'll wait and get the details. So As of now, that's all for me. Thank you, sir.
Very good, all right. I have nothing. Mr. Sammerdine.
Just real quick, I was walking through the new VBK area here today. Boy, there's a lot of work going on. It amazes me at how the electricians are in there, the plumbers are in there, the concrete people are in there. I mean, I'm hoping they're on schedule. Have you heard? I mean, I can't tell you, it looks like everybody's working.
At this point in time, we believe we're perfectly on schedule. Lots of contractors in there doing their thing. We're still got a roof yet to do, and then that dry-in work, and then we believe that we're going to have no problems completing that project in June with a late July start date of the normal school year. So at this point in time, we're perfectly on schedule.
Great, that's what I want to hear. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Nelson. Very good. Reverend Brown.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make mention that I did not make it to the Teacher of the Year on time, and I'm not going to be like Adam when he said that woman you gave me. But we didn't know we met, but it's awesome. I like the way you put them both together, and I appreciate that. The champion program, who do I contact now about me?
At the high school right now, Mr. Greaves
Okay.
and Ms. Jackson are working on putting the data together and working with those students.
Okay, Greaves and Jackson.
It's morphing just a little bit, you know, and so we're kind of broadening the scope. You know, we were focused on African American males.
Right.
We did that purposely to see if we could make a difference. We did, and so now we know that we need to broaden. And so they're looking at all students.
Yes.
And the takeaway, the learning point that we made from that was obviously that the focus needs to be earlier. When you wait until the January of their senior year, that's pretty late. And so we're starting earlier and moving it down, you know, to the 9th and 10th graders and putting, you know, markers on, you failed a class bud, or, you know, young lady, we got to work on that, you know, rather than waiting until their senior year.
Right. That's one of the things I thought about last year when I know we had a target after a committee, but there's got to be some other children that need help too. So,
Yep, that's right.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Ms. Busey.
Yes, sir. I want to request or ask the board to weigh in on whether we want to have, like, so I got to sit in on the half-cent sales tax committee meeting, and I think that that would be valuable, particularly since it was something we voted on, the county voted on, to have that live streamed, so people could watch that committee meeting. Is there any thoughts on that? I mean, I just think it would be valuable since it was something that required public input to implement, that, you know, they could get to see the presentations that Sam Dyke was there as the board liaison, I was there as the peanut gallery, but just to be able to see what we got to see and to see how their tax dollars are, and that additional tax is being spent.
What is the meeting schedule for that?
There's like 2
I
a
think there's
year.
one in May. I think we were going to go 6 months, and I think we moved it to May, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look that up. It's not, I think so.
I don't remember the exact date.
Yeah, but I don't have the exact date.
2 a year?
Well, we moved the first one up because we just started it, and people want some time to look at it again. So people took home that material so they could really review it and so forth. So that's why we're having that meeting a little earlier.
I don't know. Personally, I don't know that it would, how we would have to advertise and where the meeting would be held and.
We already public noticed it.
Who would do it.
Mr. Adams is already there.
Pardon?
Mr. Adams is already there as a part of the team, so we already have, I mean, I don't think it would create any additional burden. We already have to public notice those meetings. So it's,
What's our attorney case?
Yes, I was asking.
Oh, okay.
Legal back to let her weigh in.
I think that it is within the purview of the board to decide whether or not we want to allow that.
I'd like to make the motion to start live streaming those half-cent sales tax committee meetings.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, do we have any discussion?
I'm not sure the benefit or the negatives about it. I mean, I'm just sort of, yeah, I wouldn't mind thinking about it for a while and see if we get any feedback on that. But I'm not I'm not an active member on that committee. I sort of sit at the side in case somebody has a question based on my experience and stuff like that as a board liaison here. But the 5 members of the board are all community members that were chosen by members on this committee. And so they're just getting their feet wet. I'm not sure what their feeling would be about that. Maybe we would want to ask them, or somebody are hesitant to be in the public, I don't know.
And you don't have to decide tonight. So that
Well, then, I mean, if we got months,
We got to table it then, right? Now we have a motion on
You could do either. You could table the motion until the next time, or you could vote on the motion now, and if it doesn't pass, then she can re-bring the motion later on.
So,
Chairman, we can ask those on the committee, what they think.
so are you gonna call them and ask them? then, Mr. Chairman?
who has the, I don't have all that contact information. I mean, I'm not against doing that. I just don't have that contact information.
I have it.
So then let's table this motion until the next meeting and allow Mr. Sammerlite to poll the,
But it is a public information, it's a public meeting too.
It's a public meeting about public tax dollars that
Yep.
where people are publicly appointed by elected officials. And I think that for the sake of transparency and the fact that it's not going to require any additional effort from the district staff, that it would be prudent for the sake of transparency.
we'll table the motion until the next meeting, until Mr. Sammerlite polls.
Don't we have to vote on it if we have a
You can table it for the next meeting, which is February 20th.
All right.
That will be well before the next scheduled meeting. So it could be voted on before they meet again, so that it could potentially be licensed next
Do we
time.
need a motion to table it?
Oh my goodness.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
or do we just all,
Logistically, yes, that would be the best thing to do.
make a motion, we table it?
So we have a motion by Mr. Sammerlite and a second by Ms. Nelson that we table it till the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
name?
Motion passes 4-1. That motion of Ms. Busey will be tabled until the next meeting.
Okay, and I have one more point of another public request for a strategic plan outcome update at a school board meeting. And then I want to know, I don't know if the rest of the board was aware of, communicated it to the superintendent about concerns, a parent concern that was reached out. They reached out to me about the content of some of the books that were being carried in our book fairs that we offer at these schools. And when they made their concern known to me, I went and I checked it out. I purchased the books that they were concerned about, and it was a middle school book fair, and the books, when I went and did my research on them, were for, instead of 6th to 8th grade audience, it was for a 9th and older audience. And to me, like, you know, these are book fairs that we've all attended probably with our kids or as students ourselves. They had a good connotation to me, but it almost felt like a breach of trust because of what the books contained. And I'm talking about, one of them was they call it graphic novel, which is essentially a comic book, and it depicted sexual activities, profanity, and violence. The profanity count in one graphic novel, just one, was the D word 8 times, the F bomb 16 times, the S word 4 times. Like it was excessive. It wasn't just thrown in here or there or scattered in. And then another one was mind-boggling. We've already gotten a letter about an anonymous email, but it was excessive profanity in it. The A word 101 times, the B word 14, the F bomb 97, GD 15 times, the N word 9 times, the S word 228 times in one novel. And this was something that these kids come to the schools, and they knew that this was coming to a 6th to 8th grade audience, and they brought them in anyway and put them up there for sale in our school for our kids. And I was wondering, you know, I've spoken to the DOE about it, I brought it to Mr. Swindle. Mr. Swindle said he was going to talk to the book fair company for assurances. Have we gotten assurances from them that this is not going to ever happen again?
So what we've done as a result of this is we put in a 3-stage process to ensure that these books don't reach the students' hands. Number one, the book companies have agreed basically to a pre-vetting where the librarian will be able to select for genres, select for themes, select for content, and then deselect for content as well. And so basically the librarian, before the books are ever shipped, will have the ability to do that. Secondly, once the books hit the ground at said school, the librarian then physically, even just in case something got by, just in case something was missed, because sometimes you can read a cover or a title and it doesn't really tell, you know, what the intent of that book is or what the content of that book is. The librarian then will actually vet the book just like it was a book coming in the library that we have there for our students to check out. And so then the books will have the second vetting, and then thirdly, the principal is going to verify that the books were vetted on those first 2 stages and that the content and pictorial piece of it, because that's another piece that is very important as well. You know, sometimes the language and the verbiage within the book can be acceptable, but then the pictorial content becomes non-acceptable. And so they're going to vet for those 3 things. As I talk to my colleagues around the state, a good plenty of them ban book fairs right off the bat because they don't want to deal with this. They don't want those books in their schools. And that I struggled with that. But ultimately I decided not to do that. We have a very low, you know, reading ELA attainment rate in this district. I've struggled with banning book fairs as a way to help that. And so what I would rather do is take a little more activity and a little more responsibility among myself and among the leaders and the librarians to ensure the book content is appropriate, and then foster the love of reading and books and buying books and taking the correct books home. So that's the steps that we have taken and are implementing immediately. We have more book fairs to come. Those principals are more than willing, the librarians are more than willing to do that, and have already done that for the ones that are coming.
What about considering different vendors? There's a different vendor that.
And we use 2 different ones.
Because this is just an absolute breach of trust. I feel like it is, this company knows how Florida rolls, what they expect of what these students should be able to access in a library. And, you know, I feel like they were trying to sidestep the intent of legislation. And it does feel like a breach of trust because as a parent, I had good, as a student, as a child, you know, former child, never had that kind of exposure. And I don't think that most, you know, particularly in Florida, with those legislative guardrails in place, that people are expecting their kids to come and have that exposure at those libraries or those book fairs.
You know, and it's very ironic because the guardrails at the state of Florida, the incredible noise and flames that have been erupting around the state, you know, should have sent up an enormous amount of issues about this, right? Ironically, the state of Florida contracts this same company to do the New Worlds Reading Program, which is the books that get sent to our students and every other student across the state for free. So it was quite the conundrum. We had faith in the state, we had faith in the company. The 2 of them had all the issues they had. They still worked together. They still sent the books. All of it together was just quite the conundrum for us. At the end of the day, I'm comfortable with where we are with, you know, the guardrails that we put in place to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and to move forward and to allow the community to come in, buy the appropriate books, and to continue the importance of reading to help our reading rates here in Hendry. That's really what we have to do.
Well, what was shocking to me was you didn't have to have even bare minimum literacy rates to look at those and pick up what they were saying and depicting in those graphic novels. And it was just shocking to me that they would send content that they knew that would be intended for 9th to 12th graders to a middle school for that consumption.
Yeah. But your answer with regard to vendors, there are 2 different vendors and we use both. Both will be handled and vetted the same and have agreed to do so. Not a problem.
So the vendors have reacted.
Yes, very positively.
Yeah.
I kind of
expect their business.
I expect them to push back, but they did not at all.
So you were called about those?
I mean, I wouldn't know
And then-
otherwise.
And then you went the following day or
Yeah,
that
the
night?
following morning I was like,
So did you call anybody from the district to try to get those removed, like as soon as you got the call or anything?
well, I did not spend my time sitting there flipping through them. That exact same night, I went and showed them to Mr. Swindle.
That night?
Yes.
You called them that very night?
I made the trek over to, LaBelle
Uh-huh.
and took the books to him.
No, I'm talking about when you got the phone call. Did you call, if it was an evening time, did you call saying, hey, that way we can get them out of the school before the kids get there the next day?
I didn't understand like what he was really talking about. He just said there was a concern about that book, and I said, I'm gonna go look at it. Because, I mean, I have read, I mean, I have done a tremendous amount of research about this product. I didn't know if it was like you know, maybe a knee-jerk reaction, an overreaction. So when I got it, I saw it. The minute I saw that book, I had the discussion with the principal. And then I went and took it to the superintendent.
Okay. I mean, that's what I was asking. I didn't know what you.
I mean, I'm not sitting here hiding this information and like spring it forward at a school board meeting. I was very transparent about it through the whole process.
Nobody's accusing you of any of that. I was just asking, did you present it at the time to maybe try to get the book removed before anybody else got?
I got a call on one book and I found more than one book in there. Like I just wanted to see, I didn't know if it was, the father could not produce, like his kid didn't buy it. All I could see was the cover online. It didn't show anything in it. It was about the graphic novels. And then I went, I don't want to be like, you know, I wanted to see it. So first I went over there. When I saw it, I said, no, this is no good. I told the principal, I was like, hey, look at this. This is what I found here. And then made my way to Mr. Swindle.
Good job.
Thank you.
Very good.
Sure.
Thank you. Is that all? Ms. Pearson, anything
It
else?
is. I conclude, yeah.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.